All right, we're up. This is the Hour Town with Troy By, and we have a cameo tonight. I love it when a guest comes back that's been on the program before. And this isn't just any old guest. This is Lisa DeFalco, founder, CEO, inventor of the whole call center industry when it comes to quality assurance, right?
Yes.
Your call may be monitored for quality assurance purposes. So if you missed episode 60, I think it was, we go into all of the background and the story of your company, TPG Incorporated. So welcome back.
Thank you. I'm back.
And how are you doing?
I'm doing great, but I'm excited about how you're doing.
That's
loving this podcast. I've been following it, loving it, getting great guests. It's exciting. This is so awesome.
Do you, even though I guess this will be somewhat old news, but let's just say for that viewer that doesn't catch whatever social media promotion I do on what just happened before we hit record, why don't you break the news as what just happened for this podcast about 5 minutes ago?
I get to break it?
Yeah, you break it.
Oh my God, this is so exciting. So you just hit 1 million views on Instagram.
On a clip.
On the clip, on your clips. I'm so excited for you. This is like a huge moment in the journey, in your whole podcast, and you're on the map, my friend. Yeah, well, 1 million views, one of your clip. Fantastic.
You know, about a week ago, this clip, and it was funny because I was quizzing you. I said, this clip did 26,000 on YouTube, and I've asked this of someone else.
Yeah.
Take a guess at how well it's doing on Instagram and / Facebook.
Yeah, and I'm so now
like 30,000, 50,000.
50,000. You're like, yeah,
try 1 million. Yeah. And it was funny because about a week ago, I was telling you it was going up quick.
Yeah,
like 1,000 views a minute. It's like, like, wow, this is pretty cool. And I told my younger brother it was at like 250,000 at the time. Like, this is going to hit 1 million. And I just had this quiet confidence that somehow, because I've had clips that when they do well, you can kind of get a feel for the pattern or the frequency or the expectation of how it's going to grow over the course of a day. Most clips just die. Like, they go for 3 or 4 hours and they just stop. The algorithm stops serving it up. It's done. And for me, on YouTube, with like the number of subscribers I have, usually a good clip will kind of choke out around 2,500. And even if I look at the engagement stats, it could be like 60%, watched it, 40% swipe away. Or it could be 30% watched, 70% swipe away, but it'll still like just top out at 2,500. It's weird. And then there are a few, I've had maybe 24 to 30 clips that have busted through that, but I can't tell you why. I don't know why it just, nicely allowed some of these to break through and why it just stops other ones. But when they do break through, then you can kind of get a feel for, okay, it's climbing at a certain rate before it just completely stops. But this one's just not stopping. It's still going.
It's still going.
And you and I sat here and I was trying to get a screenshot of it hitting 1 million on the dot. And I tried, but you do have to go in and refresh. And we caught it at what, 1,000,007. Yeah.
That's how much it's going, though. It's so wild. That's wild.
But the backstory, the reason I think it's so cool that of all the guests, you're the best and most suited to sit here and share this moment with me because you're my first sponsor.
Yes,
you were my first sponsor. And when it comes to people ask all the time, hey, what's your goals for this? And I'm like, well, I mean, the goal is to make it sponsorable in a way, right? Like, it's something that's worthy of somebody putting their dollars towards. And, you have a business, you're trying to do various things to advertise and promote and market yourself, and to be a part of that strategy means a lot to me, and I think of the 20 episodes you all sponsored, it was fun. It was fun to just I don't know, put the TPG brand out there. I'd run the commercials inside the episodes and just tons of clips and tons of coverage, and most of the clips did well. And so, of all the people, I'm glad you were here to share that with me.
Well, thank you. I'm excited that I was here for that. And I'm excited that I sponsored that. And we're going to be doing that again. One of the missions I wanted to do for sponsoring beyond, I just adore your podcast and you, was to get my community really acclimated and familiar with Huntsville.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, all right, if we sponsor this, then we're going to really be showcasing our new home for our community, which, it goes across the globe. And so I was like, well, I want people to know that we're all about our town here in Huntsville. So I was excited to sponsor it.
Let me do this. I'm going to spend 1 minute recapping the prior episode.
Okay.
For people.
For 2 hours and 60 seconds. Let's go for it.
It's just the high level, right? So
love it.
You're originally from Newark, New Jersey. You go to college and you kind of just fall into working at a call center, and you take interest in a customer, and you essentially invent the industry, which is now, quality assurance.
That's right.
And then you start a company, and it ends up kind of in Omaha, Nebraska, but you've also lived in Florida. And then Huntsville came to be an important place for you because of the number of PhDs and engineers here. And you knew that call centers they've always needed advanced technology, but now we're also with artificial intelligence. So Huntsville and your relation with like Simple Helix at the suggestion of your friend, like, hey, you really should consider Huntsville. This might be a really good place to lay roots. And we go into all kinds of other stuff of just like, it's funny because I've heard you in my research, right? I've heard you on other programs, and you will always attribute your grit to the success you've had, right? You're going to outwork people. You're a single mom. You were picking up your child from daycare, going back to work, and grinding, just grinding, right? So you're definitely the one who's worked your butt off for everything that you have, and then very few people can say that they started a company and you're still running that company and you've really become an industry icon in a way, or in at least a leader.
Yeah.
And very well known. And these are top-notch clients. This isn't just you're working for, Dave's Tacos. This is United Airlines.
Yes.
And amongst others, right? So some of the biggest Fortune, 100 companies in the world. Fair enough? Does that kind of summarize episode 60?
Yeah, I'm a legend in my own mind.
3 kids.
So, 3 kids, and yeah, we have built an entire industry, and we're rebuilding it. It's really amazing how the following has just continued to grow over 27 years that we're celebrating. Yeah, and it is all about the 3 Gs. I'm all about grit, grace, and gratitude. So, you covered it quite well.
Did you Did you get a chance to speak on that? They were going to ask you to be like a panel speaker, right?
Yeah, I've actually spoken a couple of times more than a couple this last 18 months on it. I think the concept really resonates for folks. We're all looking for the next generation of what our leadership principles could be, should be. First, the people thought it was going to be like a woman's type of leadership strategy, and I think that's true, but it's more universal than that. And so it's really been taking hold. And so I've been asked to speak. As soon as I called it the 3 Gs, everybody's like, "Oh, I can resonate with that." This simple formula. And so I've been asked to speak both in women's forums. I've done some TED Talk type of forums, and yeah, it's starting to pick up.
They need to put more of that on the internet so we can watch it.
I know. I need to get. I might need to get a publicist like you had to.
Yeah, maybe I'm just saying. Maybe I should start doing that.
I should start doing that. Yeah. I think I've been so consumed these last few years about building the next generation of TPG, and which is Anna, and bringing her to market, that I haven't really had the time to think through, even to partner to say how can we get this message out. And the great thing about the model now is that Anna's live. Anna is running. All of our clients are on Anna. She's no longer a vision. In fact, I was just celebrating that moment earlier today with a friend. And so now we get to say, well, how do we get the word out? And meaning not about just Anna, but the whole, my principles on the 3 Gs. How do we get all that out there more?
Well, and let me say this. I think you already know this, right? I'm going to tell you something you already know.
Okay.
But it's critical that I'm not trying to put pressure on you, but that you do it very quickly, because AI is so much in the news right now with President Biden putting out the executive order
I know.
on AI, right?
Yeah.
And we may go through that.
Yeah.
But now, like, there's this race, and there's AI.gov, and they're going to hire all these AI people. And presumably, I think I saw today, I can't remember what company it was, but like they're setting aside $500 million to kind of seed companies that can show advancements in AI.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to call centers, if you just Google artificial intelligence call centers, right, there's some competition out there.
Yeah,
I would imagine. Let's do this. I'm going to play the Anna video.
Oh, okay.
So I have played this on social media in clips. I've played it when you were many times during the episodes when you were sponsoring.
Yeah, I didn't know we were coming back to it. I love it. Okay.
Cool? All right, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's meet Anna.
You've been looking for a way to get faster and better. Meet Anna. Anna is a new AI-powered cognitive computing tool that uses TPG's established collection of evaluated attributes, compiled over 25 years of deep learning, to analyze all of your media and generate auto scores with experienced human accuracy, but near instantaneous speed. The days of batch sampling are over. With Anna, you can analyze all of your media and gain revolutionary sentiment insights never before possible.
Hi, I'm Anna, your rapid, accurate, scalable solution to scoring, compliance, and real-time coaching. I'm looking forward to working with you.
I love it.
Thank you. She's kind of a badass, Anna. And I would say, I don't know if I said it last time, that video was produced here in Huntsville.
Was it?
There's a great group here in Huntsville that does that. The Library of.
Yeah.
I think you know the guys, right?
I do.
Phil and those guys.
Yeah.
Phil and Reese is the voiceover on that. Not Anna, obviously, is the narrator. Great organization.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned them, and shout out to Phil Woodall, because he was doing stuff for James Lomax at Redstone Gateway, and I was on. So he produces their podcast. It's called oh my gosh, why am I that? I would never do good on game shows, Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune. Uncommon Access.
Okay.
James Lomax, and so my company Mantech, we lease one of the office spaces over there.
Oh, I didn't know that yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they have a podcast, and at some point I got asked to be on it. It was awesome. And so Phil, they produce it, Library of.
Oh.
And Phil actually is responsible for the lighting improvement in my studio.
Oh, that's small world. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at episode 24, I got that light that sits above us, the first key light. And then he came in later, like around episode 38. And I was like, and he did some tweaking, and we pulled the little skirt thing down to create a different look. And I've probably bastardized it since then, because as I told you, I had to take everything out.
Yeah.
I remember, how did this work? Because I didn't touch it. Like, Phil had come in, and I did not touch.
Don't touch. Phil did
it. Like 20 episodes later, I have to do this overhaul. I'm like, oh crap! So I may have to have him come back out and be like, hey man, am I good? Because I think I may have ruined your intended look here. But yeah, love Library of.
Yeah, great organization, and how professional. I mean, that's that video looks like it was. I've been told, even so, it's not just my perception. That video looks like it's been made from Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
And that is what I was trying to get for. So but I wanted to be local. I wanted to do something local. So yeah.
I can tell you every now and then. So my brother is in Hollywood, right? And he's worked on the biggest of things. And it's actually not movies. Is not really what's sexy. You want to work commercials, MTV videos, and things like that, because it's a shorter turnaround. And as a laborer or whatever, you don't have to spend as long like on a movie set.
Yeah.
So they usually hate movies. But I've showed him some of the footage of Phil's Library of when they've done certain commercials around here, and it's like next level.
Yeah.
Like the amount of thought that they put into how they do a camera on a rig and just different things. When my brother says, yeah, man, those guys, that's the real deal.
That's the real deal, right?
And that's you're in good hands.
Yeah. That's a great testament. I would agree.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
So, okay. Anna. At this point, what is it not? Because I think there's a distinction between like machine learning and artificial intelligence, and let me just maybe phrase it this way: when it comes to call centers, is Anna something that really ultimately you're going to get to a human being, and it's trying to triage and make it such that customer gets connected to the right person to satisfy, whatever, and handle the dispute, the transaction, or is it a total solution where there is no human intervention?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. And so it's really the latter. There's no human intervention. I would say this. Anna is not part of the scary Terminator world, though. So one of the things that's happening in the world of artificial intelligence is that, first of all, most of the world doesn't even understand what A and I mean, the artificial intelligence. And it seems like the Terminator. And there are really sophisticated capabilities under this umbrella of AI that are not Terminator like, but probably feel closer to that. Like there's the self-driving cars. There's so many applications. But the reality is most of artificial intelligence is really about repeating known pattern of human. So that's really the secret sauce to it. That's really what's been out there. And so Anna is taking what we used to do as humans in listening to a conversation and being able to replicate what that human has done. And the only reason we're able to even build that is because we knew the answers to it. So what we're hearing all in the government, and as you're mentioning, there's a lot going on in that world. It's because there are applications in artificial intelligence that are not being contained and trained. So you don't know what the answers are. And what happens in those environments is they call it hallucinations, which means artificial intelligence can be wrong. And so if you don't know what the proper answer is to tune it and refine it, then it's going to go off the deep end and you're going to get bad answers. And I think something that you can relate to, we can resonate with is that the equivalent of that is when, you hear all about social media giving false news, right? People have heard that, misinformation, all that language.
Yeah.
It's because an algorithm's being pulled to try to say, what is this story really telling me? And they're summarizing it. And sometimes that summarization is just wrong.
Yeah.
So that's a thing we have a different angle at it. Ours is more sophisticated than the general market because we are really able to assess human behavior. So we're assessing how effective I'm communicating with you right now. Not just the words I say, not just your reaction to it, but how well I'm speaking. And so that's behavior data, and anything that's behavior is sophisticated. The only reason we're able to really do it well, and people say they can do it well, but the truth is, if you don't know the answers, you don't really know how to build it.
Yeah.
And so our 26 years before this year, we're 27 now, we had all the answers.
Yeah.
And so we were able to build it.
Actually, I think I might. You said hallucinations. I think there's a word. Is it confabulate?
Yeah, that's one of the words out there too now.
I just learned that word.
Yeah. There's going to be a whole set of vocabulary that comes from this, but confabulate's one of them.
So are you saying then, and I don't call enough call centers, I guess, to be the best example of, or to even compare my experience. But when Anna's employed, let's just pick United, right?
Yep.
They're still your customer. If I call United,
Still long time,
right? Many years.
Yeah, many years.
Am I talking to Anna the entire time?
No. So actually, we're a step away. So you're talking to frontline agent at United Airlines or UBS. You're talking to your wealth manager, or at American Express, or I can go on and on. United Healthcare, you're talking to the person who you're trying to figure out your bill, as an example. And our job is Anna's behind the scenes, observing that, listening to that call.
Okay.
Those calls are recorded, and so we're listening to that recording. And she's figuring out whether or not you need a human to actually do that call in the future.
I see.
And if you do, we're trying to make that human better. So we're not eliminating the human. Our belief system, and actually the most prominent senior people in corporate America who use call centers, which by the way is all of them, none of them believe that human leaves this equation. What it does, though, what happens when you have technology is that the human is always left to do the hardest part of the job. Right? So Anna's going to do something, and I'll give a real simple example. If you're calling in to say, "Hey, can I make a payment for my bill?" I have a credit card statement right now. You're calling American Express and you want to make a payment. Well, of course, there's an easier way to get that done, right? You can use your mobile app to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So Anna would use that example and say, okay, this can be done a mobile app. But now all of a sudden you have a dispute on your card, and it might be fraud, and you're not sure, and somebody else is trying to get it. You want to get a card for your spouse, and you have 3 other things you want to get done. Now you got complexity. That's going to always stay with the human. So
in the first example, I call and I say, and it says, "What do you want to do? How can I help you today? I want to pay my bill." And does it say then you need to go to the mobile app?
No, but
pay your bill?
No, but it gives the data so that the customer, so the American Express executive can say, "Oh, 22% of the people want to just make pay their bill."
Okay, so then they change their process.
They change their process.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they say, "Oh, wait a minute, this other complex one that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Wow, that stays with human. How did Lisa, the agent, handle that call? How can I help Lisa be a better agent to handle that call? Because those are complex. They're probably angry.
Yeah.
That's the more complex, the more angry customers can be when you talk. So how do I level up Lisa's skill to handle these complex ones? Because Lisa's been working in the call center for 15 years, taking payments.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you got rid of that. She was really good at doing that, but you got rid of that because customers chose the mobile app. But now you left her with figuring out fraud and trying to do an underwriting for another credit card. And now you left her with all this other hard stuff to do.
So most of it, though, is in informing management and giving reports on their 15 million calls a month or whatever it is they take.
Yes.
And if you why don't we do this? Last year in Vegas, you were a keynote with the gentleman from United Airlines, and he talked about how he was wrong about something, and it was kind of like he had an assumption on the way a call should go. And I guess he was listening in on a call or was aware of a call. And I guess in his mind was like, well, this is ridiculous. This is a waste of time. Does this ring a bell?
Oh, yeah.
Can you
well.
talk through that scenario? Because I think this is exactly what the data then proves a United executive incorrect.
Yeah.
True?
So, yes. And I thought that was very sweet that he said it that way. So we can all listen to 1 or 2 phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
And believe that we know how to make it better, right? And so in his example, he was like, oh, I listened to this call and I think that how we handle the people putting people on hold is not really important. And even though TPG's data said it was, I think what's more important is how to handle this one type of call reason, like, making a booking. But our data said that if you wanted to drive satisfaction and loyalty with their business travelers in particular, that handling, not just placing people on hold or not placing people on hold, but how effective you handle that, how skilled you are in communicating the need for that, which sounds so silly. It's like, he's like, whatever, communicate the need for a hold and handling that with proper etiquette. Come on, Lisa, give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
Our data said, no, that's the top driver if you want to lift your CSAT, your customer satisfaction. They do JD Powers surveys, as well as a ton of other things. And sure enough, the data proved, he said, all right, I'll let you, I'll give, try it. Well, we improved that element of the call. And sure enough, he wound up at a higher place in JD Powers, moved up 2 slots, huge for them. That's enormous, and improved their customer satisfaction dramatically on that.
So he assumed, I guess, perhaps that because someone was going to be put on hold for a while.
He just seemed silly. Like, why would I worry about that? That's silly.
And they had to come back and be like, actually, I need to talk to my supervisor. Can you just give me a few more minutes?
Yes, it's silly. Like, Lisa, come on. I'm a senior person. We're a Fortune 10 company. There's got to be something more sophisticated than how well we put people on hold. That's silly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this behavior on this behavior is going to really drive your loyalty. And that's a story he told. So it's like, oh, that behavior. And the secret to it, it's not just that behavior. It's how I spent 10 years defining what that behavior means.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding what real etiquette means of how we should be handling and conversing with each other when we have to have that moment of silence and putting people on hold. How we do that, I studied it to know exactly how you should do it.
Yeah.
That will drive you as a customer to be loyal versus frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why that whole behavioral assessment is really impactful. And so again, it sounds so silly. It's like, come on, I'm a senior person. I make significant money. You want me to worry about that? And what we learned is, yeah, if you want to drive the loyalty, worry about that.
So related to that, you talked about the difference between something occurs versus something was effectively influenced.
Yes.
So that was last summer, I believe, or last year. Since that time, or can you give me another good example of that, of kind of proving that point of, or trying to get to that state of the difference between something just occurring versus it was effectively influenced?
Yeah. So I'll stay with him for a minute
Sure.
with United, and then there's plenty of examples. In his world, we handled that effectiveness because it wasn't just using this example about putting people on hold. It wasn't just putting them on hold and letting them know. That's just doing the work. It's how effective were we in making them understand the need to place them on hold. That's the effectiveness of it.
Okay.
And so that they felt like putting them on hold was actually going to benefit them. So it's one thing for me to say, hey, I need you to hold, please.
Yeah.
And even say it better than I just said it. But there's another thing to say, here's why I need your patience and put you on hold. So you think it's a benefit to you. That's the effectiveness. In his business, they have always had a gap in their satisfaction with that capability between a U.S. agent and a global agent. And so we're focusing, and the global agent doesn't do as well with it. And so by focusing on that, for the first time, they have parity in delivery across the globe. Whoever you speak with, you're going to give them the same level of positive satisfaction because we worked on that effectiveness. So another example is one of our clients is in the legal business, Morgan & Morgan, one of the largest.
Oh, yeah. I'm
do you know them?
familiar.
Are you familiar with them?
I was sued by them. But go ahead.
Oh, man.
Well,
okay. Well, I don't know if
It's
I want
okay. No, it's okay. But go ahead.
Well, I love them.
I had a crazy tenant at a house site. It's no big deal.
Okay. Well, they are the
They're
largest.
huge.
They're huge.
They're
Yeah.
like Alexander Shannara. For those locally, what might know Alexander Shannara, Morgan & Morgan, like in Florida and beyond, right?
Yes.
Huge.
Yeah. And client of ours. And what's the effectiveness of them? So everyone who calls them is calling distressed.
Okay.
Okay. You don't call for personal injury in particular, that area of their business. You don't call unless you're distressed.
They're fit to bear.
Yeah, exactly. And so what they wanted to know was how to effectively communicate with distressed callers to help them realize that they're the right partner to pursue the issue for them and agree to have them represent them.
Huh.
And so with Anna, and they've tried other technologies and other capabilities. And when I first met them, they were sarcastic the way Brian was, maybe even more so from United Airlines. And they said, well, you're going to tell me that Anna's going to tell me that people call me upset. And they're like, damn right. People call me upset. So don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Because you don't call me unless you're upset. Right. But Anna was able to help them understand the percentage of people that were upset with them on how they effectively communicate, which is 5% of their population, not 100. And it guided them into how you can communicate better, what it meant to actually convey empathy with the situation. They thought they were empathizing. We all claim we're running around as a society empathizing, but to what does that really mean? And help them align to what it really means.
Yeah.
And how to build that and deliver that. In the first 6 months of partnership with them, they've generated over $60 million of new revenues.
Wow.
That they've never seen before. So that's the power of Anna. It's just understanding the behavior and being able to point you in the direction of not just, false words or perception, but just here's exactly what that behavior means and here's how to improve it.
So is Anna also then helping you to create that calculation and attribute per call?
Yes.
Per the revenue earned?
Yes.
Wow.
She does all of that. So she evaluates the conversation. So you and I are having a conversation and I'm the agent and you're the customer.
Yeah.
She's going to listen to this call. She's going to evaluate it. She's going to understand why you called. She's going to understand if you're upset. She's going to understand how effective am I in communicating with you and where my ineffective areas are. She's going to do it for every one of the calls I handle today and every day for the company. And so it's no longer 2 calls. I'm going to get a full assessment of my behavior, of how to improve my skill. The client is going to get a full assessment of, hey, everyone who's calling, like Troy's calling, has the same problem. They're all angry. Here's why. So you can go solve it, with a new process. And then she's going to be able to, she calculates and says, okay, of all the things we just observed, here are the 3 or 4 that we can prove with science that are going to drive the top revenue for you or the top satisfaction for you. So now all of a sudden you're like, all right, I have an assessment. I know the 3 things to do, not 14,000, the 3 things to do. I know it's going to be impactful. And so now I can go out and as a business, I can go improve Lisa with those 3 things.
Wow.
So yeah, so she takes action for you.
No, I was, as a quick aside, I respect, man, those lawyers, like I just realized in this whole process, I was at fault essentially with this house I owned and I didn't have a padlock under what's called like the Florida basement.
Oh yeah.
And so the tenant, I didn't realize I had a prior tenant and they would go up into the attic space of the garage and store stuff. And no one, blame whoever. I didn't realize you're supposed to actually have a padlock and you shouldn't even allow access to that, right? Well, this other tenant comes in, presumably, although I think they were lying, I'm just going to say it, they fell through the drywall and land on the concrete.
Oh my goodness.
And then it turns into an injury thing, right? And so I had my lawyer was through my insurance company, and then Morgan & Morgan was who that guy. And I got to tell you, like my lawyer I thought would write these wonderful statements, and then Morgan & Morgan would turn around, I'd be like, that's good. Like these guys are good.
Yeah.
And it went back and forth for like 2 years, and ultimately they wanted something ridiculous, like sue me for $1 million. Like, get out of here. And it ended up being like 70 grand or something. But so I ended up losing as far as I have to pay a little more for, the premium. And ultimately I finally sold that house and I've like buried that memory.
Yeah.
But I do remember on many, many occasions, like my lawyer, I'd be like, wow, this is really well written. This is really good. We got him. And then they write back and like, oh man, these guys are good.
Yeah.
They're
the best in the business.
They're really good.
Yeah, they are. Well, that's why, it's a distinct vertical for us. We don't have a lot of law firms at TPG, but what brings them into our community is they're just good at what they do.
Yeah.
Like all of our clients in any community, UBS is another great example. I'm not saying anybody is flawless, because that would, but like UBS as an example is just really great at what they do, and not just in wealth management, but all of the, high end personal management of financial. They're just known to be great.
You know what? Last night I was at, Thrive, Alabama? It's formerly the AIDS Action Coalition.
Oh no, I don't know.
Formed in like the late 80s here in Huntsville, another just a really good nonprofit. And they actually provide, it's not just AIDS patients anymore, HIV. They provide healthcare to anybody who doesn't have it. And there's a stat for you. These are things I learned when I do the podcast.
Yeah.
There's like 92,000 people in Huntsville that don't have medical insurance.
Wow.
And the idea is, they don't have a doctor. And that's kind of the case. And it's not just unique to Huntsville, but they're trying to do what they can to build facilities. So I've interviewed plenty of the mental health side. This is the physical health side, right? And having an option for everybody to have some form of healthcare. Anyway, they're trying to build a new facility and all this. And they tipped their hat to UBS last night because whoever used to kind of manage their money, I don't know, wasn't as effective as it could be. And then they go to UBS and now they're actually making money on their money.
There you go.
And they've spread it out very nicely amongst different funds, and they don't have all their eggs in certain baskets, and they were very thankful to UBS. So
that's small world, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And that's really the link of all of our clients. They're all well recognized in their space to be among the best. It doesn't mean, like United, it doesn't mean the next, you're going to have a delayed flight. It's just that's just life.
Yeah.
But they're known to be one of the best out there in their space. And so, that's what is our community.
So related to United, I was going to tell you, I was at Great Clips today getting my haircut. And I think the whole haircut industry, at least for like men, I guess, maybe not for women as much. I think a salon is a salon, and you probably, I think women are much more, majority of women are much more particular on having a particular hairdresser, right? And you go into most men might just go to a barber. And for some reason, I've kind of gone away from barbers, and I do more of like the Great Clips.
Okay.
And the Hair Cuttery is another national chain. But the whole business model has changed, where now you go on an app and you check in, and you can't really select a stylist. You just show up at the stores that are open that day, because post-COVID, a lot of people don't want to work and they're having a hard time finding stylists. And so not every store is open every day. And so you have to kind of check the app, and you check in and it'll tell you, 100 minutes, 50 minutes. And it's like, you have to really plan to like get your haircut. But then I show up, and this goes right back to kind of what we were saying as far as customer service. If I had other options, I would go somewhere else. But then you're like, I don't really have a lot of options, because it's just as much of a hassle, because there's just not that many stylists and barbers and stuff around. And then you have to wait forever. But I come in and there's like 4 of us waiting. And even though they're really good at like checking you in, from there on, there was no more communication with us as customers. And then the one person, she finishes up with the customer and doesn't say anything, like, hey, I'll be right with you, because I was next. And then 3 other people sit down, and I can see they have a very nice system, and I can see I'm going to be the first one that's called. She just disappears. Yeah. Doesn't come back. I guess she's on lunch. I guess she's on break. But then what do you do? And so I was kind of thinking like United, like, for example, like if United has the only nonstop route from Atlanta to Honolulu, then I guess you can piss off that customer all you want. They're going to fly Atlanta to Honolulu because they're you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder, does some of your customers have that mentality in a way, like, they can do whatever. We're the only ones that provide what they need, so be it.
So there are definitely companies like that. What binds our community together is that they're not that. So in the airline industry, there are airlines that actually have promoted that they no longer have customer service centers. And I won't, share that, but they're out there and they actually promote it now. There's no more, don't call us. And our community still rallies. Again, they don't always get it right. They're the largest brands in the world, but they're all mission oriented on the customer service, on being able to serve customer. And so that's, if you're not that, if that's not in your company's belief, then you don't choose TPG. And you never have, because we're not a right fit for you. I had a client once years ago, a mobile company. They needed to save money. And so they decided toward the end of the year, they were trying to hit their annual budgets. So they called and said, hey, we're going to shut the phones off, literally, for 2 weeks. I said, what do you mean you're going to shut your phones off? The customer service phone. So if you were going to call them, if you had a problem, an outage, anything, you would get a fast busy. And I said, that you can't do that. They were like, well, yes, we can. There's no law. It's true. There's no law against that.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. And I thought, okay, maybe that's just a freak moment. They did it again 4 months later. And so then we said, we can't work with you. We resigned the account because it would damage the community brand.
Yeah.
And so we're really passionate about that. So they don't work. If that's the type of company they are, and they're out there. But our community just does not believe in that. They might get it wrong, but boy, they're trying. How's that? That's,
And there's obviously many reasons why you would pull out, but one of them has to be then it just distorts all the statistics. And they're going to use that against you later. Yeah. Well, there was a 2-week gap. Well, that type of thing too.
Yeah. Well, it distorts the statistics when we benchmark, but more importantly, I'd say You know the brands that we won't mention that everybody hates. The whole globe seems to hate them. If I have them on our roster as the worst, worst brand in this industry.
Yeah.
If everybody knows it's a terrible brand, and I say terrible, I mean like lousy customer service.
Yeah.
Then yet it's on our logo. Then what does that say about TPG? We're the ones trying to improve customer service.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
We got to be careful with that. So anybody that wants to not really play in that game, and there are companies in every industry and they'll stay. Listen, I don't have to worry about that because we're going to lean in on just the quality of our product, and that's the only thing. It's either you buy it, you don't buy it. The product is good, and that's about all we want to offer, and that's great. But if they won't close out the service, and everyone's going to talk about them on social media, that they're terrible, then they can't be a part of our community.
When that happened, and if that has happened before, did that actually boost you to some degree? Did others take notice and you actually added additional customers or had some sort of PR boost?
Indirectly. Because all of a sudden, where people aren't saying, oh, TPG, they claim this, but they're representing company XYZ on that. But no, we're not here to publicly shame. We're not here to publicly shame.
No,
of that.
I wasn't saying on your account, but others may have.
Yeah, others. Yeah, because they're like, well, that's great. Yeah. Yeah. And any client any company that's being like sued by the government, we work with a lot of companies that come to us after they've been sued. And to help cure. So that's a real thing. So it's not that our clients have never been in receipt of a claim from the government, because they have. I mean, they're big companies. But anybody that's actually not seeking to truly remediate, they're just not the right company for TPG. For my community, I got to protect the rest of the community.
Absolutely. How is that going within the community? I mean, is there some good co-opetition? Are you guys, to some degree, sharing successes? And I don't guess you're not sharing your secret sauce, but I mean, how is that going as far as your collaboration within your industry?
So our community, people say this all the time that it's special, but I'm understating the word. I'm not even using the right word when I say special, because there's definitely cooperation among them. I mean, certainly there's no one sharing a trade secret.
Yeah.
Right. But when you sign on to TPG and to Anna, what you're buying is a common method to evaluate a great conversation that I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the gate, one of the things you like is that it's a proven method. Somebody else has already done the labor, which is me, and that you get to benchmark from your competition and your marketplace. Now, we don't say, company A to company B, but we compare to marketplace. And as a result, people they come to meet with us every year on their own dime. They invest to come to visit. We do an annual conference for them, and they share their stories with each other. And it's really powerful. I mean, they just sit there for, a full day plus a wonderful dinner, and they will tell case studies. They'll tell them what their journey, what they've learned, what they've improved, and they'll tell the community. And so they learn together. They kind of grow together. And candidly, they all urged me together to move forward and build Anna. So this is something that we built because we had the backing and support, the loyalty of our community. So it's a really cool.
Were some of them already doing that, or were you the first of that community doing it?
There's been a product called speech analytics. Everybody's, even in the consumer market, you've heard, speech analytics or calls are being transcribed. You hear about things like that. So that's been in the market.
Yeah.
For many years, by the way. We're deliberately late to the market. In fact, the speech market started over 10 years ago. And here we are entering it, not even 2 years now. Because what we wanted to avoid was the garbage of it. We wanted to make sure that we were going to use automation to be purposeful.
Yeah.
And not just automation. So long-winded, yes, my clients were all using those techniques, those technologies, and then they've abandoned them, let them go, and said, okay, we're ready for Anna.
Yeah. Looking at the, you obviously, not every company, I guess, that's in the call center space and call quality spaces, right, has been around as long as TPG. And you going back to our past episode, I think 307. There's 307 attributes to make up a good call. Somewhere around that, right?
Yes, exactly that.
And I believe you say that you've analyzed in AI some 180 million attributes or characteristics that ultimately feed into this algorithm, right? And I was listening to, in preparation for this episode, right, which I appreciate because it makes me go and, I don't know, like just read up on things or dive into things that I just usually look at a cursory level. And even AI kind of started out as very heavy agent based. And then over time it got very distributed, and it's kind of like distributed computing in a way. We're like, okay, well, maybe not just an agent that's kind of full of all of this quote unquote intelligence, but let's spread it out amongst many, many agents. And now it's kind of coming back to like this, to like a single agent, right? But the point is there's just been this evolution of like since the 90s to where we're at now on kind of those that are into the science of AI and what's really going to help with large language models and all this stuff. And my thought in kind of preparing for this episode was, are there going to be those just kind of traditionally AI companies who now say, great, now we can jump into the call center quality space because this will be an easy transfer.
Yes.
But yet the TPGs of the world are like, look, we're the best of the best of both worlds. We're gonna create this AI engine with the latest and greatest science, if you will, and technology into AI. But we also like the leader in quality.
Yes.
Because we've been doing it forever.
Yes.
And you're probably not going to get that in most offerings from most companies, right? Fair?
Yeah, very fair. So I like to tell people we're not technologists trying to figure out the problem to solve. We're actually the subject matter experts who know the problem, and then we build technology to solve it. And that's radically different. We were just awarded by United Healthcare. Their entire corporation is everybody knows United Healthcare.
Yeah.
They host an annual innovation summit. They have over 75 applicants that supply any type of innovation. I mean, I'm talking, we were up against avatars, physical avatars that were conversing with you about your health needs. And so they had 75. They bring it down to about a dozen that then compete. And so there were companies, and the one right behind us that when we did our introduction of Anna, the company right behind us was we'll call it a competitor, right? And their first words, and this competitor was, "Well, we can't top that." and I, he laughed and he said, "So we're gonna try a different," literally said, "We're gonna try a different approach because we can't top that."
Wow.
And we wound up, and Anna won. Anna won it. She's the innovation of the year. Across this, that's over 100 million conversations that are had every year in that one company. And she's the innovations that will be being deployed across all of it. And what had her win, because again, what she was winning against avatars and different billing automation, and was because we knew the problem to solve. And that was the feedback they gave us, was that they said, how do you know these answers? How do you know how to tell the story of this technology and make sure that it's going to benefit our company? How do you know that? So because we've been doing it for 27 years manually.
Yeah.
So we took the time to go build the artificial intelligence to automate it. We know your space. There's no one who knows this space better than I do.
Yeah.
In my company. So, but we're not trying to build rocket ships. We know our swim lane in artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
We know the contact QA space. That's our space. We started it. We're the leaders of it. And so now we're, that's why Anna's taking off.
I don't know why I'm having this thought, but I used to work in the intelligence community, and I may have done some work with people that create fake documents and forge things and all this kind of stuff. And the thing that always resonates with me is like, you can do all the sophistication you want using computers to do ultimately use technology to create something that's fake. But the person you'll never be able to fake out is that border immigration official that's been working for 30 years and has held millions of passports in their hand, and they'll just know. You can blindfold them, cover their ears or whatever, and they will just know if it's legitimate or fake because they've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
Or I actually watched this guy online. He's like a card. He's funny, and it's like a card magician type guy, and just does card tricks. But like he'll blindfold himself at times, and he does like what's called a casino wash, and they kind of shuffle by like spreading the cards out on the felt. And one of the cards had kind of like got out of his like reach, and then he gathers them up, and he's like, "Wait a minute," and he knew there was one card missing, just because the deck felt different.
Yes.
He just knows.
And that's the secret to Anna. The one thing I required our team to do when we were building her was that you had to honor the method. Nobody was allowed to shortchange the method to get to an answer. So if the method talked about what does it really mean to rapport build, you weren't allowed to shortchange that definition of rapport building to say, but if we just looked at this word or saw it a little differently, it'd be easier to capture with automation. Yeah. So standing behind that and really being firm and being just adamant about it, that's what allowed Anna to be different. And it required, candidly, it's far more complex what we built than what others could do. It took, if I wanted to shortchange it, it would take me fraction of the time, fraction of the investment, candidly, but we wouldn't be able to do what I talked earlier about, which was really have a value behind the behavior assessment. And so I was like, you can't bastardize the method. You got to honor it. And so our product, you mentioned it as an algorithm. It's actually, because it's 307 attributes, it's actually an ensemble of models. So hundreds and hundreds of models have been built. We have multiple models for one singular attribute. So it's extremely complex. Yeah. Because human assessment, if I'm going to assess your behavior to make you a better professional, that's a complex concept. It's not, did you say a cute word or not that cute word, or, it's more complex. So yeah. That's how we built her. Then that's why she's being so well received. We knew the answers. We've been doing this a long time. There's a saying that says, if you want to be an expert, you have, and this isn't about my industry, it's broader. You have to perform 10,000 hours. Have you ever heard that?
I think I have.
It's called called deliberate practice. It's a whole philosophy. 10,000 hours of doing something will make you an expert. And there's actually a book on it. It's a great read. And they have some of the easy examples, like a Tiger Woods. What makes Tiger Woods Tiger and not anybody else, near him? And it's this, that they studied it, and deliberate practice means 10,000 hours. And I have certainly performed evaluation of conversations for more than 10,000 hours on that. And so that's why we're ahead. 10,000
hours is basically 5 years of, if you were working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
That 5 years.
20/80 is usually the standard, right?
And actually the practice of deliberate practice says you can't do it 8 hours a day. You have to be able to, you can't do it for more than 6. And you have to focus on every single aspect of your trade. Yeah. So it's not just, hey, practice golf. It's 6 hours a day of short putts. It's 6 hours a day, so we have to take each piece of it. Yeah.
Here's I'll give you a really good inside golf Tiger Woods story.
Okay.
Most people, I'm a big golfer. I love geeking out on certain things. So John Cook is a former PGA. I don't think he's playing on the Champions Tour. I don't think he plays anymore, but he's probably 20 years older than Tiger, right? So Tiger comes onto the scene in the late 90s, and it's about the time of his prime. 2001 was like
the prime.
Vintage Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
And there was an interview where John Cook, they're asking him, and everybody gets interviewed. It doesn't matter who it is. They're asking about Tiger Woods, right? and they're asking him, hey, what makes the difference? He's like, well, I'll tell you, we were at our home club the other day, and he belongs to the same club, whatever. And we had just played 9 holes, and Tiger was out on the range hitting a 9-iron.
Yep.
And he, we talked to him a little bit, hitting the 9-iron. Well, then, we eat some lunch, and then we go out and we play, they did whatever, and then they come back. So it's like 2.5 hours later, and Tiger's still on the range, and he's still hitting a 9-iron.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, man, what's going on? He's like, I'm just one groove off. So if you look at the face of an iron, there's these grooves in there, right, that help spin the ball. And that's how the technology will change at times, from like a V groove to a U groove and all this kind of stuff, and how the ball does or does not spin. But I mean, he's feeling like something that's like a fraction of you can't even measure it.
Yes.
Like the naked eye. But for 2.5 hours, he just was not happy and content with where he was. And I'm sure the shots looked fine. I'm sure John Cook, I'm trying to remember the magazine article, but he's like, I don't really see the problem. But to Tiger, it wasn't satisfactory because he was just not hitting it exactly on the groove that he wanted to.
Yes.
And he's like, well, have a good day. And he's like, I don't know how much longer he was out there. One club for at least what he saw for 2.5 hours.
That's deliberate practice.
And I'm sure, again, if you charted all that with the technology we have now, you would be amazed at like just the infinitesimal, degree of which he was trying to perfect, whatever he was trying to do. So anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly the practice. And it's just that one piece. He was just working on that one technique. So, in my own life, I'm a huge follower of deliberate practice.
Yeah.
And I believe in the philosophy, and I've been living it even before I learned about it for years. And you become obsessed with it. And I don't mean the practice, but when you become obsessed with learning how to do every element of your trade to its level of excellence, and that's just driving you, boy, it takes a long time to get to it.
Yeah.
But when you hit that your stride, it's extremely powerful. And that's what he hit, clearly. And he's been practicing that. The story is public, right? He was a child as all that started. And so it takes years to do that.
Yeah. I don't know.
10,000 hours.
I wouldn't recommend reading his biographies if you still want to stay a fan of him, because it's a pretty brutal story.
Oh yeah, I would. Yeah, no, I recommend just reading the philosophy where he's referenced in one chapter.
I know. Sometimes you just don't want to know the truth.
No,
right?
Well, sometimes it's funny you mentioned that. I was just speaking about this a couple of weeks ago. There is an interview by a CEO from I'm going to say the company name wrong, NVIDIA.
Thank you.
I always say it wrong. And he made news because multi-billionaire, so nobody feels nobody's crying for him. But he made news because he was asked if he would do it again. What would he do? What would he tell his 20-year-old self,
really?
23-year-old self if we were starting his company again? And he said, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And so that made the news, not all the things that they're doing. And they were like, what do you mean you wouldn't do it? He said, just if I knew how hard this would be, I would not do this again. And I think that just goes back to sometimes, being excellent or delivering, whatever you're doing. As an entrepreneur, I can tell you, like, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And I think it's deliberate practice to get you great. I also think it's deliberate naivete that lets you actually pursue the course of owning a business. Because if you didn't have that, you would give up.
That's a Swedish company, right? Isn't NVIDIA Swedish?
It's called NVIDIA. It's actually it's actually two Asian gentlemen.
Asian, okay.
Yeah, brothers that own it. Yeah, and they made all the news recently, and they actually do microprocessors.
Right.
So they're a huge competitor now to Intel, and they have.
Well, I thought they started out like in video cards.
Yes.
Right, for like gaming and stuff, right? So they're doing processors too now.
Yes.
They had a little building. I don't know if they're still in Huntsville, but they have a building with their name on it.
Oh, really? So I didn't know
it's
that.
It's kind of over, what is that? That fronts the 565, like by the airport. Like
okay.
Literally like across from the runway.
Don't you just love that all roads lead to Huntsville?
They do, right? What would you tell 23-year-old Lisa?
Oh, well, 23-year-old Lisa, woof. Would I do it again?
That was right? 23-year-old. That's what they asked him. If he were 23, would you do it again?
Because that's when he started.
That's when he started
his thing. So if I were to, 20-year-old Lisa, I think I would tell myself, don't listen to people. Don't worry about the people. You have a mission, you have a vision, and the people don't matter.
Yeah.
And that sounds really cold, but those that believe and that will follow.
Yeah.
And those that won't, and don't sweat it so much. I used to sweat that.
Yeah.
Even now at TPG, we do a lot at TPG. Now, we're not perfect. No company is, but we do a lot to create a great environment. We've had, just like our team member program, right? We have, honors PTO. We have 16 to 18 corporate holidays. We have, a benefit package that's actually, really good. There's one health plan that I pay for myself personally, completely, that you could choose. We have, we've increased our base pay by like 40% in the last 18 months. There's all, the company's growing. There's so many great things. We just put into an equity plan.
Nice.
So everybody is every employee is part of
ESOP?
it. Yeah, everyone is part of it. And so that, when it's time and I sell a share of the company, everybody will participate. And I'm sure, there's still people, right? You just don't worry about the people that are going to complain about it. And I wish I lost years obsessing over that. And I'm not saying be a cold-hearted, fool. I'm just saying don't be so worried about it, because plenty of people will follow and they will have gratitude. And people who don't have gratitude, you're never gonna do enough for them anyway.
Yeah.
And I wish I had known that over the years.
Yeah, I always just think of the bell curve.
Yeah.
In life, right? There's just statistically, there's going to be this percent that they'll just be a pain in your butt.
Right.
Then there's going to be this percent that are the overachievers. Mm-hmm. And then there's those people in the middle, and you're going to work hard and you're going to do everything you can from an HR perspective and employee retention, and you're going to communicate and do the best you can.
Right.
And they still might leave, but ultimately some percentage might want to come back. They realize they made a mistake. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, you just keep trying to do the best you can. That's all you can do.
The best you can, right?
And you train your people.
Yeah.
To be good managers. They're going to do the best they can. They're human beings. And then, the chips fall where they fall.
Yes.
And if you're a complete ass or something like that, then okay, well, you can probably have some more, struggles. But for the most part, you're just trying to you're trying to do right by people. And I think when they see that and they sense that, even if they complain, it's just like the calls. It just goes back to like the nature of like, what's that data telling you, right?
Yes.
Or what's that customer want? The people just want to be communicated with. They want to feel like you care. Even if it's bad news, at least you told them versus an email versus a text, right? It's just have a Christmas party.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people would stay with our company because we have a great Christmas party.
Yeah.
And it's one day out of a year.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you get a whole nother year of service out of them.
You get another year of service. I totally agree with you.
Let's touch on this, Lisa. I don't know if I touched on this enough last time you were here, and you were kind of just talking about the passion, right? And this is your company, and we were talking about how at 23 years old, would you do it again? But then you can also get obsessed with certain aspects of TPG, right? And now there's this AI piece, but now there's also employees and managers and training them and kind of keeping from a personnel standpoint, keeping that going and not just talk me through what you've learned or how you go about your leadership style, how that has evolved, the training that goes on at the different levels, and let's just talk about like the human resource side and the personnel side, if you don't mind. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah. So it's a totally different business now. being able to, we're on the other side. You know, when I first, and in fact, when I met with you, we were just getting out into the market. And since that time, my businesses in terms of value has tripled.
Wow.
And it's been amazing. It's
less than a year.
Less than a year. It's really life changing. And the product has changed in terms of it's all tech. So we still have customer support and service, but we used to be a consulting group. And so that consulting is now like the icing on the cake, not the cake. So we have the need to scale. And now it's no longer the ability to say, hey, can we create a consulting moment? Now it's about making sure that everybody has really great satisfaction with the product. So leadership wise and just the whole business wise, you know, grit stills, the 3 Gs still play in. They're still the major. In fact, I'm going to tell you that they're becoming even more important, not less. Because when you transform a business from a consulting business to an AI tech space, and AI is moving at the speed of light, everything you do is going to have to be assessed so that you're even if you have a success today, you've got to be able to willing to double down tomorrow. And so the pace is intense. And so grit definitely plays into it. But I'd also say that the gratitude piece, really appreciate when customers are not just appreciating your people, but also appreciating your product. Because now it's self-serve. A lot of that, I mean, the product has to stand on its own. You're not going to have Bobby calling you every day just to say, hey, we're friends. Come on, keep buying from me. The product has to be there. So what's required the team to do is, and I'm really thrilled about it, is that they've all had to take ownership in the delivery model. So it's no longer, hey, we're just a small enough company where Lisa can run around talking with clients and keeping them satisfied. It's really distributed across all parts of the business. But one thing I love about this, though, and for Huntsville, is I originally came here, and you mentioned this, for engineering. And it's still a major reason that we found here. However, it's the secret to our growth, and really one of the things we love the most about it is we have a whole behavioral science and data analyst team. So think of this as people who are entering the market. Yeah. So right out of college. And this has been an opportunity where we're seeing great talent and a place for them to grow. So people who come in who want to learn how to do data science and go from a data analyst to a data scientist, our new business model lets them do that. Cybersecurity. It's a big city for cybersecurity. Well, we have a hefty deployment of cybersecurity models that we do, and make sure that we are working with all of the security protocols, because we're now taking in all those recordings. Right. So it's opening up jobs there. So all of a sudden, our business, which was kind of there were 3 roles, so to speak. It was a smaller number of roles. It's expanded dramatically. And so being able to handle and help lead people through a new design of what that role will be tomorrow, because it's never been done before. So is just game changing, but it also makes me kind of level up. I have to be able to see where we're going 3 steps ahead, not just the vision 50 steps ahead, which I've done, but 3 steps ahead to say, okay, what's the role that's needed to fill that gap that's about to happen that you don't see today, but it will happen. And how do we make sure that we assign and staff the right skill to it? So it's just changing how we serve. It's changing instead of being very prescriptive in what we should do. It's requiring me to actually be more visionary and more be able to describe more where we're going, the 3 steps ahead, so my staff can my leadership can say, okay, well, this is how we can go serve that. It's one thing for me to say, hey, we're going to be an AI company. Yeah. Here's where we're going. And I was just talking this morning with a friend of mine. A few years ago, we're celebrating actually an anniversary of designing this. A few years ago during COVID, every year we would host a client summit at the Breakers in Florida. And but COVID hit, nobody was traveling. I still had a commitment to the Breakers. And so I called about a dozen or 6 friends with their spouses, and I said, listen, I have to make good on a contract. So we can go to the breakers. You can get it for a price that's ridiculous, and we'll go spend a long weekend. And so we do. I with them the first night, but this is when I get the idea for Anna. And so I text my girlfriends and said, you're not going to see me again this weekend. And they're like, what do you mean? We're at this gorgeous hotel. And I'm like, I'm going to be locked away and I'm going to build this concept out. So that, and we just were celebrating it. That's one level of vision when you see something that is not there at all. And I'm not going to say that's easy because that was really hard, but really inspiring. But I would tell you that it's more complicated to see 2 steps ahead of you.
Yeah.
And help your team get to 2 steps ahead of you, because you got to see it quicker, because it's 2 steps. You know, one thing for me to see this vision called Anna in 2020, it doesn't come to fruition until end of 21. So I had plenty of time to get people to see what the heck I was talking about. But when you're like 2 steps ahead and clients need it right away, getting everybody to rally around that vision very quickly is the next step. That's what we've been working on.
I think last time we talked, we talked about how, you know, you're growing this company. At some point, you got to start trusting people, you know, and different lieutenants, if you will, you're hiring. Did I hire the right person? And ultimately, now it seems like obviously within the last year, you've scaled, you've tripled.
Yeah.
Now you've almost had to force yourself to, like you were, let me just kind of repeating back and playing back what I'm hearing, away from the prescriptive and more of the, hey, I'm going to teach you correct principles. Now you got to have to govern yourselves in a way.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
And is that the biggest thing that's been the biggest challenge for you, just your continual professional development?
Oh yeah, it definitely is, because this is something, this goes back to deliberate practice. My deliberate practice is TPG.
Yeah.
So there's very little inside of TPG that I lack understanding of. Right? I mean, I excel in it. Well, I should. I've been doing it 27 years. So the ability to kind of just step back and have principles are totally different for me. I think, though, that leadership, those 3 Gs, though, have become more characteristics that I look for in people. Because if they don't have the ability to have grit, if they don't have the ability to give grace and accept grace, and if they don't have gratitude, and, you know, not everybody, unfortunately, does. If they don't possess those capabilities, those characteristics, then what we're finding is they're not a right fit for TPG.
Yeah.
And those are the characteristics that carry the company forward, because I'm not going to be there every hour of the day to say, go left, go right. Here's how to evaluate that call. Right?
Are your people, even though a CEO will say, well, door's always open. Well, okay. That a lot of times a company may be too big, and it's like you don't want to bypass certain management just to go right to the CEO or the owner, whoever it is. But is the culture such, are you okay, where they can give you feedback? They're not shy. Yeah. Lisa, I don't know about this, you know, or is it still, is there just some of that, by the nature of the fact that this is your thing and you know every aspect of it? I don't know. Do they shy away from that? Yeah,
I think sometimes people do. I'll tell you what I tell people. I welcome feedback. Like, I listen to feedback all day long.
Yeah.
Not necessarily exclusively inside of TPG, though. And I would tell you that as a CEO, there are probably people inside of TPG, I'm certain of this, that would say I don't listen. But here's what I tell them. Don't come to the gunfight with a knife.
Yeah.
So if you want to debate me inside of TPG, bring it on. But know your shit. Be prepared to debate me. But don't tell me that, you know, you have this better idea without knowing what the idea is. And don't come to me thinking that I don't know my facts. So if you're not willing to go do your own homework, then absolutely you're going to feel like I'm going to drive over you and I'm going to say, do it my way, damn it. And that's fact. I mean, I don't shy away from that at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I don't listen. I mean, I'm in a whole new world. I mean, I'm building out an AI technology company. We're actually the largest commercial AI company in this city. We're the most recognized commercial AI company in my space, right? I mean, this is like we're dominant in our business, but it's a totally new world. We're at the point where we're the only privately held company with no outside capital in my space, and we're actually raising capital. So the first time ever. That's why we have an equity program to do a side and protect our entire employee base. But now we're out there raising a minority stake capital, so be able to continue to fund and fuel our growth. Those are all new things for me. But just like when I started out having a board, that was a new thing for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly seeking and asking and welcoming feedback from lots of people. I listen to a lot of people. But again, I make sure I go with a gun to a gunfight.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
and people don't. Sometimes people want to just say, I don't like your idea. And I'm like, okay, but tell me yours. Well, I don't really have one. Well, then don't tell me. Then don't challenge me on that, because you're just not qualified to have the conversation with me.
Love it.
So, yeah.
Well, I think we're up on a hard stop.
Thank you.
Let me ask you one last question.
Yes, sir.
You have any shout outs?
I'd like to shout out to my team tonight. So, we have this amazing team inside of Huntsville, and those who actually work at TPG inside of Huntsville have just done an amazing job of welcoming us, telling the great story of TPG, and getting it so that we are a recognized employer here in the city, especially in the downtown city. So I want to do a shout out to my team. They're just doing a great job.
West Side Square?
West Side Square, 200 West Side Square. We're right there. Yes.
Eventually you're going to need more office space?
Take over the whole
building?
Eventually, I was just going to say, that's a big building. It's got 9 floors.
Yeah.
So, here we come.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for your time. I know you're extremely busy, and it's an honor anytime where you're willing to set aside time on your schedule after hours, right? To come by and to do an interview. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And I was glad I was here for the million mark. How exciting is that? That's awesome.
It's good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I'll have to come back and tell you how we do on the other side of our venture group. So I'll come back and share that.
The story just keeps going, right?
Absolutely.
With no end.
No end. No way.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks so much.
Have a good one.
Have a great day.